if Google ran my store, I guarantee you they would come up with something even crazier than that, right? I think they'd be selling a lot more cars than me, and they'd be making a lot more money, and I really believe that. I really do, and I think it's the challenge of being a
What a great thought experiment. How would Google run your store? Well, if we have this hypothesis, let's begin testing it. And Google has 113 products that they offer, starting from your basic search, maps, translate, and Chrome products,
onto the watch, listen, and play apps such as the ever-popular YouTube, the music app, Chromecast, and Play Movies and TV.
Google has hardware such as the Pixel phone, the Google Home, the VR Daydream glasses, and of course their Wi-Fi.
And they offer ways to stay connected through Android phones, Wear, Chromebook, and Android Auto.
There are 70 products available for consumers, another 30 products available for businesses such as AdWords, of course, and then another 13 products available for developers. Now, this is Google, so then if you look to the parent company of Alphabet, then they still have these other companies such as Calico, their R&D biotech company. They have Chronicle, a cybersecurity company. They have DeepMind, an AI company. And of course, in the automotive space, they have Waymo, the autonomous car development company that Google is infringing upon in the automotive space.
On this episode, Joe will talk about what it would look like if Google ran a dealership, or in this case, Honda of downtown LA, and how their dealership is already looking forward to the future as Google does. So they're looking across multi-generations, how to get more buyers, and thinking as far ahead as what will the dealership look like 50 years from now, similar to what Google does in trying to gain new users and appeal to a wider audience. So we have a lot to look forward to in this upcoming episode.
So, welcome to Season 4. I'm Dennis Wisco.
Along with Kelly Cruz.
And we are your hosts for Wisco Weekly in our special podcast series entitled Dealer Exec Customer X, where dealer executives share how their dealership operation aligns with the customer experience.
You are now tuned in to the Wisco Weekly Experience.
Chicken brown cow. Listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Wisco Weekly podcast. I am on location in Marina del Rey. There is the Thought Leadership Summit going on right now at the Ritz-Carlton, and I'm lucky enough to have some guests on the show, specifically the one that's here with me today. So let's get into it, because this could be a very long and fascinating discussion. So let me introduce my guest. Today's guest has been a success in the making, and it wasn't easy. For starters, how about paying your way through a 4-year university? Working full-time and going to school full-time is an arduous life path that leaves little room for pleasure and a lot of room for stress and anxiety. But if you want something bad enough, then there's no time to ask questions. Just put your head down, do the work, do it purposely, and the results speak for themselves. Fast forward to 2011, and the risk to move from one coast to the other, to buy and own a bankrupt dealership in the competitive and demanding landscape of the Los Angeles market, takes a certain wiring, and it takes a certain person who's not only tough as nails, but who puts their head down, does the work, does it purposely, and the result is becoming co-owner of the soon-to-be #1 Honda dealership in the nation. A graduate of University of Maryland, he's a member of the Capital One Auto Finance Board, Honda Financial Services Dealer Advisory Board, and California Hospital Board of Directors. And he's also the new rescue owner of a German Shepherd. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Mr. Joe Shuster.
Thank you very much, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Joe, I really appreciate it. I've, as I mentioned to you, I had the chance to kind of dig into you a little bit. There's not much out there, but certainly the things that are out there of you, it's very fascinating. So I feel very lucky and privileged to have this time with you. So thank you. So Joe, one of the things I thought we would get into first is, so you obviously didn't just step into this role as the owner of a Honda dealership. You've been a tenured dealership guy, a car business guy. And so I thought it would be interesting to hear the juxtaposition, the compare and contrasting when you were a sales manager at Paragon Honda and what it's like to be an owner of a dealership, and kind of just talking about, what was the car? How did you view the car business as a sales manager, and how do you view the car business now as an owner?
Wow, that's a great question. I think I've been in the business for so many years now. It's about 27 years, and starting out as a salesman, working my way up as a sales manager, general sales manager, general manager, now dealer. You certainly look at things differently when it's actually yours, and you really appreciate your people, and you realize that people are your lifeblood, and every decision you make is really surrounding your people, and the decisions you make about the vision of the store, benefits.
Now, when you say people, are we talking employees? Are we talking the community? Are we talking the customers?
That's a great question. All of the above.
Okay.
All of the above, because really, your customers are what keeps you in business, but really it's your employees that are there day to day, and it's their vision as much as it is yours. And I find myself now as a dealer sitting with my guys in all positions, whether they're the porter, whether the sales guy, the technician, parts counter guy, and listening. Because now I'm getting a little bit older. I'm still a young guy, but I'm getting a little bit older, and they definitely have a lot of great information. And it's beneficial for me to listen to them and to hear how they're experiencing the marketplace, not necessarily just in the automobile business, but their lives. And it's a treat, quite honestly.
You've had this long tenure in the car business, and certainly I'm sure it's well deserved to where you got now.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, if you were to kind of look introspectively at yourself, what do you see as some of your strengths on how you got to this point?
I've been very fortunate. I worked at some great places, Paragon being one, then Hillside Honda in Queens, New York. And I've worked with some remarkable individuals that really were great mentors for me, that really taught me about hard work, cutting edge, always wanting to do things differently, and thinking out of the box, if you will, and trying different things. I was thinking about it earlier when we were talking about Paragon, and I remember, I think it's 1999 or 2000, and I think Who's Calling had just gotten on the scene.
Okay.
You've heard of Who's Calling, obviously, right?
Hold on, remind me.
So back then it was a hey, they can listen to your conversations.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So, and I remember I was the general sales manager, and they came to me, they pitched me this, and back in '99, that was unbelievable technology, right? You can listen to a conversation, you can listen to your sales guys or gals or the BDC reps. And I listened to their pitch. I thought it was a good pitch. And I brought it to my boss, at that time was Brian Bensock. And I said, hey, Brian, it seems like a good idea. He literally grabbed it and ran with it. And I remember that, he was never scared to evolve, change, or try something different. And that stuck with me for many, many, many years. You know, 1991, I went to college, and my mom, I'll never forget, I'm living in Brooklyn, New York, and my mother calls me up. She says, I'd love for you to go to college. And I said, Ma, we can't afford it. I was waiting tables at a restaurant in the Village, and I thought I was going to be a professional waiter, whatever that meant, right? So whatever, I caved obviously, and I said, hey, go to college. I said, that sounds all right, and we couldn't afford it. So I took a loan. I think it was like $3,500 to pay for my first. Back then, college was a lot less expensive than it is today. I mean, I think now it's I don't know, but so I took a small loan for my first semester, and I needed a job. And there was a local car dealership up the street, and I figured honestly, I went there to wash cars. I never thought I'd sell cars, but I met a great guy. And I remember when I first became a dealer, I sent this guy a letter. His name was Mike Byatt, and he was the general manager of the dealership. And he said to me, he goes, "Hey kid, why don't you sell cars?" And I said, "I'm a full-time college student. And he goes, "It's okay. We'll work around your schedule. What time do you go to school?" I said, "I'm on campus at 8, and my classes are done around 12:30." He goes, "Well, after school, come to the store, and work to close." And I said, okay. And he was great. He worked with my schedule. It was tough. I mean, it was a balancing act. But he was a great boss. And it's funny now, as a dealer, if I have young guys and gals that are going to school or are trying to accomplish something else in their life, but they want to make a good living, I want them in our business. It's a different time. It's a great time to be in our business, and I want them to actually say, "Hey, you know what? I want to work at LA Honda, but I am going to school. Can you work something out with me?" And I say, "Sure, absolutely." You
certainly have again, I know that this is a podcast and no one can kind of see the video of it, but certainly the couple times now you've said that you're a dealer, you certainly have a twinkle in your eye.
Sure.
And it's kind of very, you're humble and proud about that.
I am.
So listeners, just understand that when he's talking about him being a dealer, like, you got to see the smile on this guy's face, and he has like the Duchenne smile.
It was hard. It was hard work. How many people do you meet that are managers and people in the business that say, "I want to be a dealer one day"? And I can't tell you in my career how many of those people I've met. And I was that guy at one point. I was a general manager for 10 years. And at one point or another, you want your own. You want your own home. You want your own business. You want your own podcast. You want your own. You want your own, right? Yeah. And it's hard. I got to tell you, it's really hard, especially with the cost of real estate these days. With dealerships being how they're not cheap.
This is kind of a side note then, but so then when you looked at acquiring this store that was bankrupt.
Sure.
And it seems like you picked up some additional partners or investors.
I did.
Do you remember what your pitch was to?
I wanted to. Initially I wanted to be. I went to the gentleman I was working for.
Okay.
And I said, "Hey, I've been here."
This is at Hillside.
I've been here for about 10 years, and you know me. You trust me. I trust you. I'd like to buy in. And said, "Joey, I got 2 daughters, and this, that, the other thing." I said, "I got it." So, ultimately you want to buy the store you're currently at because you've worked so hard, and especially if you've been there 10 years or what have you. The next ideal situation is to buy a store that's similar to the store you're running, but then you realize that's a gajillion dollars, you can't afford it. So the next thing is you got to get a starter store. So what's a starter store? A starter store is something you can afford.
Yeah.
It's like a starter house, right?
Well, yeah, somewhere in the suburbs, something that it's
a townhome.
Yeah, right.
So something you can afford, and I don't know what that is. Is that a XYZ franchise? And I don't want to downplay any franchises.
Understood.
So it's something that you can afford. And did I ever think I'd own a Honda dealership? I'm in my late 30s at that time, and I said, that's the, as a car guy, that's the creme de la creme. You own a Honda dealership. And I heard about this dealership, and I gotta tell you, Dennis, when I tell you, you want to talk about insecurity and like stress and nervousness. There's a dealership in LA, Metro LA, that was bankrupt. So somebody before you, actually 2 dealers before you, struck out.
Okay.
Right? So you had 2 California dealers that didn't do well in this facility. So I'm thinking to myself, how can I do the job, right? So, and then nobody in California wanted to buy this dealership. So I'm this dum-dum in New York saying to myself, well, can I do it? Yeah, I think I can do it. Can I do it? Yeah, I think I can do it. And then you want to talk about insecurity, the insecurity setting. I'm like, how can I do this? These guys struck out. They must have been decent dealers. Nobody in California wants this dealership. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this. And then, a couple of my dear friends pepped me up and they said, "Hey, you can do it."
if I'm a customer,
Sure.
and as exciting as this showroom is going to be, and as exciting as there's, the evolution of the car buying process is accommodating me as a customer. I can do a lot of things. I could do more things online. I can get cars delivered to me. There's still one thing that hasn't been addressed fully yet, either by a vendor or a dealership, and certainly it's a huge challenge when you have a dealership in a metro area of Los Angeles, and that is test drives.
Yep.
So what's the thought process on how are you going to handle test drives, and not just a year from now, but what is test drives going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now?
It's funny you asked this, because I was talking to my executive team a couple weeks ago, and the new store is 2 large parcels of land. It's about just shy of 2 acres, right? And so we're building the whole facility on one side, and the other side is going to be a parking deck. And the goal ultimately is to build I saw something, I forget if it was an automotive news but I saw what Ford is doing in China, or attempting to do in China with vending machines.
Oh, okay.
And I said to myself, is it feasible? And this is, I hate to use the term thinking out of the box, but this is just good business, good thinking. Sure. Is it feasible that a client can come to a store or our location there, the lot across the street, check in, and let's verify his information, obviously, make sure he has a valid driver's license, make sure he has insurance or what have you, or maybe even non-insurance. We have a dealer plate on the car, and he or she can take the car out at their convenience and test drive the car. And they're in between a Civic, they're in between an Accord, they're in between a CRV. Hey, you don't want a salesperson in the car, you don't want a product specialist in the car. I get it, no problem. Take it out for a spin, come back, within 24 hours, test drive the car, show it to your friends, show it to your family, see if it fits in your garage. And I think about things like that, and I say, hey, to me, test driving, I do believe, one, everyone wants to still test drive a car. Mm-hmm. Two, I think it's imperative that clients test drive. You're still spending a good amount of money. You should test drive a car. Make it easier for the client to test drive a car. Currently the client's waiting around, the salesperson has to get a key, they take a copy of a driver's license, blah, blah, blah. Make it easy. Mm-hmm. And does a salesperson or a product specialist have to be there when a client is getting a car and test driving your car? I would say no. This
almost sounds like what I could see a business. It's like this this combo of loaner sharing, right?
Sure.
Where it's like you have almost a fleet of cars that are specifically for test driving, and then it's like maybe it's like, oh, okay, here's the Accord, and probably I think and I would imagine customers would be empathetic to the idea that it's like, well, look, I know there's all these options in the Accord, and I can't test drive all those options, but okay, there's one that here's a base model, and here's the SE model, and it has a little more options. Okay, let me just get a feel of those two, and then I can probably get an idea of what I'd want to do from there.
That's correct. Customers today do so much research. Mm-hmm. They know these cars just as well as some of our sales guys. Mm-hmm. And for them to have to come in and wait for a test drive, it's archaic to some degree. And, if Google ran my store, I guarantee you they would come up with something even crazier than that, right? So we think, hey,
that's a good point.
It's true, right? If Google came in and said, hey, Joe, you're out. Here's a check. We're gonna run LA Honda. We're gonna own this place, and this is gonna be a Google guinea pig. Yeah. Somehow, some way, they would figure it out, right?
That's actually a great thought experiment. Is
sure.
Like, take any company that's out there that's infringing upon the automotive space, like Google, like Apple, and say, okay, if they were to come in and run my dealership, what would they be doing? And
I think they'd be selling a lot more cars than me, and they'd be making a lot more money. And I really believe that. I really do. And I think it's the challenge of being a dealer now is, hey, getting the guys and gals on the team to see it. And a lot of my crew sees it. And there's some people that are still like, hey, but what happens if a guy takes a car, he doesn't bring it back right away? And I say, that's silly. What happens if a guy takes a car now, he doesn't bring it back right away? If he gets in an accident, what happens if he gets into an accident now? Yeah. Why can't we have and again, I'm just using this vending machine because I saw it in wherever, automotive news. But why can't we have that concept where Dennis can come in with his family and test drive an Odyssey, a Pilot, and without a sales guy sitting in the back seat just like bumping a log? Why can't he do that and enjoy the car? Well, he's going to go to the game. Okay, let him go to the game.
is there a fine line between, somebody buys the car at Airport Marina Honda, but is within your geographic area, has never bought or serviced their car from you, but says, hey, Joe, or someone else, but let's just say somehow they get to you, maybe they email you because they're like, I'm going to go straight to the owner, and they say, hey, Joe, I'd like to get my car picked up to service my car over there.
Sure.
Are you kind of going back and like, okay, wait, has this guy done business? Or do you qualify that customer essentially?
I'll answer the question this way. If Google owned my store, would they do it? I think that's the best answer. If Google owned my store, or Apple owned my store, or Microsoft owned my store, would they do it? Period.
So take me back too, because one of the questions that I thought of, earlier today was, okay, if I'm in Joe's shoes and I'm considering buying that store, I'm certain that I've made my list of do's and don'ts, or positives and negatives, and so at some point though it's going to come back to it's bankrupt. Okay, fact, that's a con, but you'll always come back to some kind of fact that it's like, well, but it's bankrupt, and that's probably an opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
Were there 2, 3, or what facts, pros, cons, did you kind of say, hey, you know what, at the end of the day, this is what it boils down to?
The cons were very simple. I mean, the nervousness I had, you're investing a lot of money. I invested a lot of money. My own money. There was no loan, 7 figures, and that's a lot of money, I think. And you're moving 3,000 miles away, different coast. And quite honestly, I had been to LA once before, a layover to Australia. I think San Francisco. I mean, literally, when they said LA, I'm thinking to myself, to me, from New York, LA is like, forget it. It's, and I had been to San Diego, San Francisco, like for NADA or a 20 group meeting, but I had never been to LA. I had never been to LA. So when I came out here, I said to myself, I can't, Dennis, just reliving it is kind of funny, the agita, the stress, right? But the pros were this, it's LA. It's a big market. It's the biggest market in the United States. It's Honda, right? And I had a great demographic. I mean, I was in Queens, so I understood, the Hispanic market. It was, for me, it was an easy market to delve into because there was great diversity. Downtown LA is a great diverse area. You got black, white, Hispanic, Asian, different religions. It's a beautiful market, and quite honestly, it was right up my alley. So I had the market that I was comfortable with, the franchise certainly I was comfortable with. And, it was LA. I said to myself, hey, you know what? It's a big market. There's got to be a lot of people. I did, my first day here, I was on the, what do they call it? Freeways out here, right? Freeways or highways. I always forget what the hell they call it out here, right? And I'm just looking at all this traffic. I said, where the hell is everyone going? Where's everyone going? There's like 6 million expressways or highways here. And I knew that everyone was driving. And I said, you know what? Everyone's driving. I got Honda, and I got a great market. I got to be able to figure this out. And the other guys before me, hey, maybe they just were unlucky. I don't know. Or maybe they just didn't mind their business.
In May of 2017, the source says Business Wire, but I think that's just a press release. But so you say here, purchasing a new car is often a multi-generational family experience for our customers. So we wanted to create a state-of-the-art facility that accommodates and appeals to everyone. Yep. Your discussion at Thought Leadership Summit is on the state-of-the-art vertical next generation concept. I'm curious on why you chose multi-generational to explain, to define who is Honda of downtown Los Angeles, who you are, and what this represents about the future. So can you kind of dig into, or am I reading into it way too much?
No, you're not actually. You're right on the money. And it is a multi-generational experience. Los Angeles is a beautiful place. And I moved here about 6.5 years ago. Sure. I moved here about 6.5 years ago, and I think the community, it's funny, you can walk into my dealership on a Tuesday afternoon, and there's 100 people in the showroom, but there's like 7 buyers. And a lot of these clients bring their whole family to the dealership, and it's a beautiful thing. When we thought about building the brand new store, we thought about that. Hey, listen, it's an infinite game we're in, right? Okay. It's not a finite game. This is going to go on way longer than I'm around. Yeah. And so what is it going to look like 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now? I don't know. I hope I'm around. I don't know if I will be, but I hope I'm around. And I love to see it. But the reality of it is there's going to be buyers 30 years from now, 40 years from now, 50 years from now. The community is going to demand a facility, right, and a process, more so important, and a group of individuals that are going to be able to change and assist them in buying an automobile or a service or a part or what have you. So when we say multi-generational, I think it's important because, hey, we're selling to Gen Xers right now, we're selling to baby boomers right now, we're selling to millennials right now, we're selling to the new generation right now, and they all want to, the execution's a little bit different. They're still buying, but the execution's a little bit different. I mean, we have people that come into a dealership that want to be there for 5 minutes and then just say, hey, ship me the car. Deliver it to my house. We have people that want to sit there for the whole day. So it is a multi-generational experience. And
how are you able to find the balance, though, right? Because I think if anything, it's always a bit tough, especially as the owner, as general manager too, that, well, of course you want to do what the customer asks, but at the same time, to take a car to a customer is a drain on resources. And so that's like if 2 guys have to go to take 2 cars out to a customer, well, then that's 2 less guys at the dealership that can be doing things that are, I would argue, more productive and better for the business, which would be eventually better for the customer.
Yes and no. I look at it this way: if we're not going to adapt, if we're not going to evolve or change, if you want to use that word, someone is going to do it for us. And I really believe that. The automobile business is cool right now, and you have a lot of people in our space, and a lot of people with deep pockets, billion dollar pockets. Google's in our business. Amazon wants to be in our business. All these people want to be in our business. The car business is a cool place to be right now, right? And I think you have to be cutting edge. You have to offer services or options to clients that may not want to do it exactly your way. So, I've heard this term numerous times over the past couple months, shared experience. And quite honestly, I believe that. You have to give the opportunity to the client to have a shared experience with the dealership. And they may not want to come into the dealership. That's okay. They may not want to sit there for 2 hours or 3 hours. They may want to do everything online, ship it to me. They may want to start the process online. Hey, I'll come in for 10, 15 minutes and pick up their car. They may want to start their process in the store and then have you ship it to them later. It really depends on the client. But as the dealer, it's imperative that we offer those options. And if we don't, I believe sooner or later somebody will. And what I've learned over the past umpteen years in the automobile business, or actually in business, is customers are forgiving when it comes to your facility, right? You can walk into a facility, it may be retrofitted, it might look old, it might look, as long as it's clean, they're forgiving. They're not forgiving when it comes to your process or the way you treat them. They're not forgiving. They won't forgive you for that. Hey, you treat them poorly, you're out. If your process is not up to par, you're out. If you haven't evolved, if you haven't changed, if you haven't given that client options, you're out. Your bathrooms are a little bit small, your showroom is not so great, the AC is not so great, they'll forgive you. They don't like it, but they'll forgive you. So when we're building this facility, quite honestly, we're in Metro LA. Yeah. And Metro LA is not cheap, especially in downtown LA. You understand. There was an article in the LA Times not too long ago. Downtown Los Angeles specifically has had $30 billion worth of development within the past 5 years.
I would actually think that number is pretty low. That seems low.
God bless you. $30 billion is a lot of money, right?
Yeah, no, it's a ton of money, but there's so much development there.
There is, yeah. But this is just downtown Los Angeles. Yeah. I mean, it's just a lot of money. And downtown LA, as you probably know, when I got to downtown LA, it was considered the rough area of Los Angeles, right? Now it's a place to be. Yeah. The Arts District is hot. I mean, just downtown is a hot area. Yeah. So we really had no choice other than to go vertical. And as we were designing it, we said, hey, you know what? It's kind of like a good thing because everything is encompassed in one thing. No matter what the market demands and how buyers buy 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years from now, our facility is going to be able to assist them because everything's really right there. So if they decide they never want to come into a dealership, that's okay. We have storage upstairs. If they never want to drop off their car for service, that's okay. We have lifts upstairs. We can pick up a car. We can drop off. We have an area where we can drop off a whole bunch of trucks and bring a whole bunch of service cars to the store.
Now, I mean, with all the floors and the operation that's going to happen on every floor and the accommodations to the customer and to be ingrained in the community and to still do your job for Honda, I mean, it's a lot of things to be asking of yourself, of your employees. Is there going to be a little condo suite for you to sleep?
Actually, as a matter of fact, my office is overlooking the Coliseum, so hopefully I can get a good view of the football games.
That's fantastic.
We're excited about that.
Hey listeners, thanks for tuning in to this episode featuring Mr. Joe Shuster. This is part 1 of a 2-part series where the first part, hopefully you've got to know a little bit about Joe. Stay tuned for part 2 then as we talk about some of the amenities that Honda of downtown Los Angeles has to offer. Also, look to visit wiscoweeklypod.com and find a local dealer and listen to what they have to say about how their operation serves you, the customer. And if you would like to work directly with a dealer executive at a particular store, just send us a message on Facebook or request a call from us at Wisco Weekly and we will hook you up. Cheers, Prost, L'chaim, Nastravi, Kipis, Salud, Kampai, Mabruk to the customer experience.